In a world surrounded by franchises, reboots, and shared universes, an elite team of podcasters will risk body and soul to investigate the depths of intellectual properties, one multiverse, subgenre, and trend at a time. Who are we? We're the IP Squad. Welcome back to the IP Squad, our investigation into films based on pulp and comic strip heroes. I'm John Campbell. With me, my partners for this investigation. Oh boy, these two. We're going to get to the end of this if they don't kill each other first. It's the Jones boys.
Howdy.
It's our straight arrow by the book, Brendan Jones.
Yay.
And that lovable streetwise Serpico of the show, Robin Jones.
I think
You know
that
what,
only
John?
means
We
that
have a lot of we make with the wiseacres and stuff when we talk here. But I just want to say, I'm trying to keep it real. I'm trying to keep it street.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of listeners that don't know your $5 words, John. They don't know. They don't get from Bookworm over here.
Robin
with
only
his
gets to
book
be
learning.
the Serpico because he actually has been in jail. And
His dark criminal past comes forth this far into the season.
and I have avoided it to date.
Thus
Anyway,
far.
Yeah.
thus far,
Yes, indeed.
Anyway.
Hopefully we don't get arrested for this episode, which we are talking. It's 1982,
Yeah.
and this is one I feel like people have been waiting for. We're talking about John Milius's Conan the Barbarian.
I think
And
people,
wait, I just want to interject in case our longtime viewers don't get this.
Yeah.
This is a backdoor pilot for our new podcast, Sanding Down with Thandall, and we are gonna really
Dig
talk
into
about some major things with
dig
her.
into the Sandahl Bergman filmography and legacy. There's so many in there. I can't wait for our Hell Comes to Frogtown episode. I just,
Exactly, and as always,
I thought it was for a launch of our new podcast, Makopedia.
That's also good. Oh man. Oh, there's so many good people in this movie, you guys.
pole dancing with Polydorus.
Dude, I could talk about Polydorus for a long time, and I will on this episode because.
But as always, we're sponsored by Squarespace. Hey, how do nerds know so much about stuff?
Yeah.
Well, they probably use Squarespace.
I love the score, and we will talk about
The
the
score.
However, I do sit there going like, did Carl Orff rise from his grave and go, I already did that, and it's called Carmina Burana? Because this score owes a lot to Carmina Burana. Da 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 da. Da, 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 da,
Oh, you're missing out on the best, the theme song. Conan, he's a barbarian. Conan, he's a great guy.
There are parts where they've got that wordless chorus.
Oh, it's so
Oh,
good.
so much.
It's so epic.
They do seem to be chanting Conan at certain points.
Yeah, it's one of my
You
other
don't know.
one of my other favorite scores of his is Hunt for Red October, which also has that epic choral sort of sound to it as well.
I certainly don't mind it. It's very operatic, and you gotta.
I mean,
have something like
and
that for Conan.
is there a moment of this movie where there's not? I think this might be a complete, almost the whole movie has his score in it. Yeah, it's. I mean, it's amazing watching it again. I love this score, and I've listened to the soundtrack a lot. But watching the movie again for the first time in a while, just how much the score. I always talk about the score as the MVP of this movie, but it really is. Like, the score carries a lot of this movie because a lot of it, there's not a ton of dialogue in the movie. It is carried by this score and these images, and it's So I mean,
John,
all
by the
props
way,
to Polydorus.
You're absolutely correct, but I will say this, and you can edit this part out. Your internet was doing a little bit of this yesterday too. I think it is your internet. Now I still see you, but you are literally just lagging. Your voice is coming through just fine.
Well, we can't.
I don't still see you, but
no one can see what we're doing, so
through.
yeah, we probably should cut this out because people don't watch this show visually. So
yeah.
Now, John,
if you can still,
you say that.
Yeah, that's right. You forgot about the people.
Emails.
Yeah. I don't know how those people are seeing it, Robin, but yeah. No, but the
anyway.
Yeah, the Polydorus score is but before we dig into the movie itself, I know our resident source material expert, Brendan Jones, probably wants to talk about a man named Robert E. Howard a little bit.
I do, but you know what's interesting is that you were just saying that people have been waiting for this. I bet there's not a single person, even if they're really into the IP squad, as they should be. But
I hope so. Please like and subscribe.
That would have predicted this run of movies. I'm sure they're like going, where are they going? They did Diabolique and Popeye,
right,
and
right.
But this is truly to the heart of pulp, which I love this. Robert E. Howard, who created Conan, it's a fascinating story, and it's also great that he accomplished so much before he offed himself.
At 30, I didn't realize it was that young.
Just 30.
Yeah.
And,
wow.
And he had already done. There are 22 canonical Conan stories.
Canonical?
Yeah,
canonical. Yeah, the Conan.
And, sorry, slightly distracted by the construction work.
Yes, there is construction work you may hear. It's louder for you than it is for the audience. But yes,
that's
if
good. That's
if
good.
if you do hear anything in the background,
the audience hears a lot of drilling and construction. It's just that Brendan works really hard to make his points. And
I'm drilling down into the truth. But anyway, Robert E. Howard was. It's actually his arc is very similar to Edgar Rice Burroughs, even though they're separated by a couple decades. But basically, clearly, Robert E. Howard, growing up in Texas, like small town Texas, must have just been ate up all the Edgar Rice Burroughs stuff as a kid. And by the time the 20s roll around, he's already firing off stories to the pulps, most of them being rejected. But around the early 30s, he finally gets a couple of stories and poems published in Weird Tales. And Weird Tales, of all the pulps of the 30s, that's the one that's responsible for a lot of the highbrow pulp guys. So Lovecraft. And Lovecraft comes out of Weird Tales too. And that's great. And Lovecraft's very important. He's older than Robert E. Howard, but they both become pen pals. Because basically Robert E. Howard wrote to Lovecraft just to provide helpful notes, Robin, where he basically wrote to him and saying, like, I think that the etymology of that word is actually this. And Lovecraft was like, oh, all right.
Well, so, and I will say, if you
at any point did Lovecraft go, "You're not perhaps an African American, are you?" Because I have a big
Let me
problem.
just check first before we get into that.
But I was going to say, you can feel some of that Lovecraftian influence in a lot of the Conan. Though Conan is sword and sandal, there's a lot of old ones and massive death cults devoted to weird monsters.
Kind of to get published in Weird Tales, because if he had just done straight ahead historical-ish fiction of barbarian times and a guy with a sword, if there had been no supernatural and no, creatures, monsters, wizards, it probably wouldn't have been published. So I'm not saying he didn't love that stuff, and he certainly did. But I think he's like, okay, fine. That's what the crowd wants.
I have this barbarian character what could he go up against? Oh, well, there we go. You know.
Right.
Yeah, and he had already been doing the King Kull stories, which were set in Atlantis before it goes down, and Kull is like the proto Conan.
Yep.
And Thulsa Doom, by the way, is a Kull villain, not Conan. So this movie takes and borrows from all over the place.
Because what is it? It's Kulan Goth, or is that who's the villain?
There you go.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the undead wizard that Conan goes up against.
Yeah.
And they just combine stuff because the worshiping of the snake and being a follower of Set, that is Thulsa Doom stuff, but they latch it on to kind of Conan's villain of Kulan Thoth, and it's nerdy, but what I do love is that obviously
this show, we're talking about a movie that's nerdy.
Milius and Stone obviously just they took a lot of stuff from across a lot of Conan stories. They cherry picked and they blendered, but it makes a very essential Conan epic, so it works. But yeah, Conan comes later. Just like J.R.R. Tolkien sat down and wrote the Silmarillion to he just needed his backstory, so he wrote down the history of centuries worth of Middle Earth. Robert E. Howard did the same thing with the Hyborian Age. Basically, the editors of Weird Tales told him, look, if you're going to keep doing these stories set in that world, you ought to figure it out. And he's like, on it. So
you just poked the bear, sir.
Exactly. And it is supposed to be a connected world. I mean, the Kull stories are set in the same Conan verse. It's just hundreds of years apart.
We won't be covering it, but
Solomon Kane any Conan or Atlantean stuff?
There are mentions of old gods and that kind of thing, because it was a thing where I think Lovecraft encouraged, because it became like L. Sprague de Camp and Lynn Carter, all those people picked up the Cthulhu mythos, and he was kind of like, look, if you're a good writer, he was a snob, but he was like, if you guys are good and we're all pen pals and we're all connected, if you want to seed your stories with my elder gods, go right ahead. And they all did. So that's why people
because it's good stuff, man. I mean, why would you not?
It's good stuff, but it also, they're nerds creating a shared universe where they're like, oh, you know what'd be awesome is I have my own character, but what if he mentions just offhandedly? And you're like, perfect, do it. So it makes a thing where obviously legions of fans for decades have done timelines and chronologies and trying to find out how these characters interact and cross over. Regardless, Conan is a barbarian that is not set in a real historical era. I love the idea that Robert E. Howard just said, look, and it's because he couldn't get a lot of actual source material. He had crappy local libraries.
Right.
So he actually said, he was a history buff, but he goes, I can't find books enough to educate me. So that's why he created a lost age. He's going, this way, no one can say that's not historically accurate.
Yeah.
I made it all up.
It's all a fake world.
Between the fall of Atlantis and the rise of the sons of Arius, which actually is in the opening narration, which means essentially when the Indian
between the fall of Atlantis and the rise of the sons.
Conan is essentially a proto-Celt. A lot of his adventures are happening in Ireland, Scotland, and then when he becomes a pirate, and because Conan's not just a barbarian.
No, that's the thing. That's the bummer
he's a thief. He's an adventurer.
A pirate.
I was going to say that's
eventually
that's
a king.
One of the biggest bummers that this didn't carry on.
It sets up a sequel. You're right there.
He's a destroyer.
Yeah, well, we'll get a sequel, but the fact I was reading that they had Arnold committed to 4 of these, and I was like, God, because you could totally imagine the third one would have been Conan the Pirate, or something like that.
Yeah, which could have ended with King Conan, and we would have gotten, because Mako lied to us, but he goes, and that story will be told, and we're like,
but I remember up to
Conan
10, 15 years ago, Schwarzenegger was still going, gonna do King Conan. Yeah, that's happening. It's gonna be me.
Play the younger Conan. But
I'll play King Conan. And I will say, up to about 20 years ago, yeah. Now I think it is maybe he's a little, even for King Conan, he's a little elderly.
Maybe he's a little. Maybe at 80, he's maybe a little too old.
I don't know, man. The guy's still in pretty great shape, though. I'm just saying.
No, he's in better shape than I am. But I'm just saying. Still, no one's asking.
Gonna be, well, that's another thing, too, where it is like now enough time has passed, so you're like, maybe just new Conan, it doesn't have to be Arnold.
But to wrap up the story, there we go. I'll just jump in and say the stories were successful-ish. But he was a troubled dude, Robert E. Howard, and it's so interesting. He was in the wrong place. I mean, he certainly he did a lot of the kind of things you do back then. He did some ranch work and all that kind of stuff. He boxed. He was an amateur boxer. In fact, I've seen
some of the photos of him.
Yeah,
and he wasn't like a big dude, but like him in the boxing trunks, and he's kind of a scrawny little dude. But I'm sure he was a scrapper.
He's actually kind of puffy, but at the same time, for the day, he was a healthy guy.
Yeah.
But he was one who was a true writer and also just an imaginative guy. And no doubt he was probably mocked by a lot of his neighbors and so forth.
Oh, yeah. Well, he was a...
Brendan, did you ever see the movie with Vincent D'Onofrio and Renee Zellweger?
Is it the world...
wide world.
Something.
Fireworks.
It's something like that. Yeah. Well, that's one of the things I love. I did watch
It's not this world, then the firework. That's Jim Thompson.
No, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Sorry.
No, much different story. I did watch because Brandon, you and I both have. I don't know, Robin, if you got it, but we both got the Arrow Video version of this. The collector's edition.
I went back and forth on it, but at the end of the day, Kino Lorber was having a sale, and
I did pick up some stuff on that.
Walter Matthau is a crime guy.
Great choices.
70s.
Great choices.
Charlie Varick and the Laughing Police.
I had no idea there was a Kino Lorber sale, and now I'm sad. But
it's still going, Brendan. I think it's still going. I believe, as of the recording.
But I got the Conan Chronicles.
But what I was going to say is, I watched the which is older. It's ported over from one of the previous releases. But there's an hour-long documentary about Conan the Barbarian on there.
It's got a lot of stuff on there, and the booklet also has some excellent articles.
I love
did read one of the articles, but I haven't watched any of the special features yet, because I just got it yesterday.
I recommend the hour-long documentary that's on there. I think it was made in 2000. So, but there's not a lot of new info about this movie from 1980. But anyway, they talked to Milius in it, and he's just going, Robert E. Howard was a weird dude, but my kind of weird dude. He's just going like that. That guy. I love it. It's just total like nerd to nerd. I'm speaking here. That guy. Right. Although Milius, we gotta talk. Okay, so we jump forward to this movie,
making the movie,
which actually started in 1977 because they talk about this in the documentary. Producer Edward Pressman. He and another guy went to a screening of Pumping Iron, and the guy he was with when Arnold came on screen went, Conan. That's Conan. And from right there, they spent 5 years going, we will make this man Conan. They were just so fixated on, they never considered anyone else. That's Conan, and come hell or high water, we're going to turn that in. And by God, they did it.
The funny thing is they got in order to get it going, like get a distributor, really.
Yeah.
They were told that you have to get a named screenwriter.
I think
the best that they could get was Oliver Stone,
who seemed based on because Oliver Stone's in the documentary, which is great. Who seemed maybe too interested. Like the stuff that's described in his draft was people just going, "This is unfilmable," and he's just going,
right.
"I pictured tens of thousands of mutant warriors on fields," and you're just going like, "Oh boy!" And they were just going, "Oliver, this is," and they show pages of his script in it where it's just blocks of text where you're going like, man, everything they tell you not to do in screenwriting school and stuff like that is just blocks of all, and he's describing massive stuff. Also, I don't know if you saw this, Robin. His script was set in the future.
Yes.
Yeah,
and
it would have been set
kind of like Sandal Bergman's She that she did, where she
it would have been instead of thousands of years in
the post-apocalyptic future. But
weird choice
that due to Stone's problems at that time with cocaine and alcohol, and all I could think was, at that time, because hasn't that continued like that? That's never really stopped,
if it hasn't, it sure feels like it has, right? Because my God, he never seems not like a coked up maniac.
They did a smart thing in that they got they approached Milius. Milius turned it down, and then eventually they came back to him.
And I think
it was probably necessary to have a guy who. And again, he is not who you'd pick as your action guy at that point. I mean, Oliver Stone is he's still an indie.
He's
thinker.
coming
so
on
your big budget fantasy epic he's probably not your guy. But it's good to have a guy like that come in, shoot the works, basically to say, I went deep into Conan and got ideas for days and cocaine. Conan and Cocaine, which is the name.
Well,
of
it is interesting that after this, it is interesting that after this he writes Scarface. So I'll just
but essentially, he is not the guy you'd think of. But at the same time, he's perfect because this movie will put hair on your chest. This is the most masculine film that's ever been made.
Well, you got two alpha males.
I was going to say that's
but what was important is having Milius come around and. Sculpt it.
Yeah.
It's like there's probably a lot of Stone still in it, but he's like going, "Oh, I see how to turn this into something filmable."
Yes.
And I got to say,
Milius's thing was he wanted it to be as unfantastical as possible. He wanted to shoot things on location, physical sets.
Yeah.
And he was hugely influenced for this movie by Kurosawa films. Yeah. That was his big
and that
thing was that he wanted it to be like a Seven Samurai, like a Yojimbo or Sanjuro or something.
He talks about, you talked about, Brandon, that Howard didn't want to be caught up in historical accuracy by making his own thing. Milius comes in with the opposite approach. He goes, I figured out where the Hyborian age could have fit into the real world, and I placed it in a specific time. And he really, Milius being, surprise, surprise, a big military guy. Who would have guessed?
Oh, sure. Sure, John.
Yeah. Well, he talks about
military guy.
As he says, he goes, I never wanted to be a director. I always wanted to be a general. So I treat every film like I'm going to war. But in that sense, he goes, I wanted to get into the weapons and the tactics of this real setting. And so I think, yes, between the two, you have Stone's cocaine-fueled fantasy nightmare, and then Milius going, I really want to ground this in real medieval combat. Together
but at the
make
same time,
this...
I want to make poetry out of Nietzsche and the steel
By the way, the audacity,
the sword
starting with the Nietzsche quote at the beginning of this movie I had forgotten about and was just like, oh man, that is calling your shot, Milius, right? Where it just goes like, that's what we're doing, folks.
Yeah.
However, it's not exactly true. Famously, I've had my nose broken. It didn't make me stronger.
Wait, Brendan, didn't you have super strength for a while though?
No. I was electrocuted as a child. You might remember that, Robin.
Yeah, sure. Brendan, you never used to bring it up.
Yeah. So none of these things made me stronger. Whatever doesn't kill you just makes you go, ow.
It's
and then possibly look weird after.
But Milius is such a...
Brendan, if I know you don't believe it, but I know also your alter ego, Mr. Hyde, does know exactly what you're able to do because of these accidents. Here's the thing, though: if you have, and I will encourage our longtime viewers to go see the documentary on John Milius.
It's Milius.
Because
it's great.
That dude should have a movie about him that's not just a documentary.
Well,
that's how much of a character.
As I'm sure you both know, he's a lot of people bring up that he's Walter from Big Lebowski, right? Is that that is 100% Goodman playing Milius, and even the way, down to the way he looks, the glasses, the whole aesthetic. Because I had to look it up because I had seen that documentary, so I did remember this. But I'm like, did not serve in the military. Milius, in fact, was rejected. He was the one guy begging to go to Vietnam, and they were dude, he's asthmatic. You can't. And but literally there are quotes from him. He goes, "I would have done anything to be a Marine. Anything."
Well, I've actually, I mean, there are plenty of people I've known that are like that in my life, where it's the romanticism, which actually makes them sort of sad and desperate. I mean, the guy could beat me up, no doubt.
Well, yeah.
But at the same time, there are plenty of people who worship that kind of physicality and that kind of brutality, and that's when you're alive. And they're almost always the people who have never served, never been in it, never been in shit.
The photos from the set of this movie, he's got the Marine beret on when he's directing, and I just go, "Oh, dude."
Yeah.
And it's so interesting.
You've probably seen that old photo of him with Lucas and some of the other USC guys standing on like the Santa Monica Beach or something. The other guys look kind of chill in their Beach Boys kind of shirts and shorts. And Milius has on a bandolero, a sombrero, a cigar.
Well, that's the thing they talk when they talk about that in the
wannabe.
They talk about that in the documentary, right? That like of the film school brats, he was hanging out with those guys, but he was the intense one. Like Spielberg talks about, it's like he was the guy who was like, "Let's go out shooting," you know. And you just go like, "Wow, that guy." And that's like where Spielberg goes, "I need an intense monologue for Jaws. I'm gonna call it Milius," and he writes the fucking Indianapolis monologue because like, I know the guy who can write a super dark, intense thing for Quint. It's my weird friend.
Need a draft that's a little more blunt for Apocalypse Now.
Yes. Well, and that's the thing that's interesting, though, about him and Stone, of course, because Stone's the exact opposite of a guy who got drafted in, got, fucked up by Vietnam, and it shows through all of his work.
Right. Yep. But John Stone, similar to Milius, wasn't drafted. Stone went and
that's right, because that's the platoon thing, right? That is Charlie Sheen goes over there with the I'm gonna hoorah American, and of course, that what ends up happening.
Because Stone had issues with his dad, who was a Wall Street broker.
Like Stone's whole biography is across his movies. There's no question.
He steps off the plane and appears in Vietnam instantly. Fortunate Son starts playing, and he's just like going, "Oh God, I'm gonna be making a movie about this, aren't I?"
Yeah, and he made Platoon is, if you're gonna see one movie about Vietnam, Platoon is probably it in terms of if you want the experience of it, right? I mean, like Apocalypse Now is brilliant, but it's grand, it's operatic,
a story and it's not
if you want the boots on the ground, in the shit
this
movie.
Is where Robin's hot take kicks in. If you really want to see good Oliver Stone movies, Talk Radio and Salvador.
Agreed.
And then don't watch anything else except maybe U-Turn.
And U-Turn, interesting.
His stuff is crap.
I have a real love-hate relationship. There's some of his movies I like, but he wanted to direct this, though. He really wanted to direct this movie they talked about.
Sure.
And at one point, there was talk about he was going to co-direct it with the special effects supervisor from Jaws. They were talking about, like, okay, because that was where the studio was like, okay, as long as you have a guy in there who knows how to do special effects and action, maybe. And then when Dino De Laurentiis came in was when it was like, he's not going to direct this.
You realize that Dino De Laurentiis is responsible for for half of our season.
It is crazy. Yeah, when you see his name, you're like, God damn it.
He was just running after IP.
He really was
after it.
I feel like he was kind of one of the first producers to really do that, right? Like sort of in a modern, I'm going to buy up rights.
That was smart.
That's really good because can you think of a movie that he did that's known, that's fairly well known, that isn't IP based, and the only one I can think of is Blue Velvet.
Oh yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Off the top of my head, most of
the
it, yeah.
stuff that he's known for is him going, I'm going to make up a King Kong myself.
The thing is that
a Cly, the Cly for the monkey.
What I like about this movie is the fact that it's hilarious that it also kind of kick-started a brief. Well, it didn't kickstart because Excalibur came before this, right?
They're roughly the same time, right?
But you know, that could be seen as also kind of weird spillover from Star Wars and that kind of thing, where people are going like heroic fantasy, okay,
right?
But the sword and sorcery genre kind of gets sprung out of Excalibur, which was successful, and this, which was successful.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it is interesting when you sit there going, sword and sorcery as a genre, if you can look at that whole picture of it and say, which are the ones that are actually good movies? I'm not saying I don't enjoy a lot of sword and sorcery. I will watch The Sword and the Sorcerer, speaking of which. There are plenty of them that are lame. And most of them are really bad.
Yeah.
And so Conan is you sit there going like,
it's Conan.
This is the cream of the crop.
It's still Conan and Excalibur.
I was really surprised. I thought this was going to be more of a chore, frankly, to watch it, because I haven't seen it, I don't think, even on cable, since it came out.
Yeah.
And I was really impressed with how well
it's a good movie.
It worked, and how well it moved.
Still come. But this is a real deal movie, and it's just again, the subject matter is totally genre. So it's like, but we have a real filmmaker here, and it works and it moves, and there's so little dialogue, and yet everything works. It's of course almost laughably sincere about the world it's in, but it needs that. It's looking right down the barrel and going, no, we're not winking at all.
That's what James Earl Jones says.
Doom is a cult leader who occasionally turns into a giant snake. Just deal with it. And you're like, I will deal with it.
That's the thing.
But at the same time, he's a cult leader that's set up in a way, especially when Von Sydow comes in to talk about his daughter. It's obvious that this is also Milius kind of saying, well, in a way, this is like the Manson family or Jim Jones.
Oh, well, there's definitely this is not taken from Howard. The idea that the followers of Thulsa Doom, it's this sort of fake, it's an apocalyptic cult, but they're all focused on love and flowers and stuff like that, and they're following their brave father.
One of my favorite undercover.
It's a couple of really. Sorry, hold on.
Yeah,
it's like Stone and Milius are basically sitting there going like, I always hated the hippies.
Well, I was just gonna say, because it's one of my favorite
sheep.
One of my favorite things is Undercover Conan, when he goes undercover as a hippie.
Oh yeah,
it's the best Schwarzenegger when he's just like, I'm shy.
I'm a bit shy.
Leanings.
No, so shy.
To beat the crap out of him.
So shy. Yeah. You know what though? It's not great, but I will say I was surprised that it wasn't worse. I will say that I was waiting for it to be. He beats him up, but he doesn't.
That's what you get.
That's what I mean.
Fellas, but it's not like that.
It doesn't go that far, and the actor does play it very feminine. But once again, the whole thing, it is light praise.
Canny.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's the thing. But
he is a thief, and he's using anything to his advantage. And
it is.
Although I love that line early on after he meets the thief guy in the desert. You know that guy's vocals were dubbed by Mako as well, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Mako is both a character
Well, 'cause
and
that
then
guy-
also dubbing the other Asian guy.
That guy wasn't an actor. He was a surfer who was a
he's
friend
surfer.
of John Milius.
That Milius met doing a Big Wednesday. But
Yeah.
at one point, the guy turns to me and goes, you're just too big to be a good thief.
Yeah.
He's like, you're just too big to be a thief, and that's actually great. When I
Yeah.
watch this thing and you see like the group coming together, it's like Conan finally gets freed from being a gladiatorial fighter and all that stuff, and he's just doesn't know what to do with himself, and he's like, all right, I'm gonna become a thief now with this guy, and I've got a friend. But as the group comes together, where it's like you've got your archer thief, you've got your female kick-ass warrior woman,
Your
and
Valkyrie,
you've got your
as
wizard,
John Milius loves to
and
say.
I'm sitting there going, I know that D&D came out earlier. It was from the 70s.
Right.
But I can guarantee
Yeah.
Gary Gygax is sitting in the movie theater when this came out and just going, oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Is he in a dungeon? He's in a dungeon. He's in a dungeon.
I will say, friend of the show.
Finally, everything I've ever dreamed of.
No, 'cause-
for the listeners who don't have their cameras turned on to view this,
Don't try to turn your camera
was
on.
doing an impression
Yeah.
of a guy perhaps a little too turned on.
A
Yeah.
little too excited.
Inappropriately.
Not sure where to
Turned
put that
on.
energy. But no, I was gonna say when I see
Oh my God.
when friend of the show Mike Ergoni, believe it or not, has a lot of D&D stuff in his home. If you go to his home,
Wow.
and I will say a lot of it does feel very Conan, right? Like just
Now,
seeing
hold
the
on.
imagery from
But
it.
it was supposed to be. It was supposed
John,
to be Lord
would
of
you
the
say
Rings.
that Mike Gergoni, do you think he knows the riddle of steel?
I would say he does. Here's a big shock. He loves this movie. Loves
this is a movie
this
that,
movie. Yeah, this.
made for him.
But is his answer the same as Tulsa Dooms, where steel is not as important as flesh?
Well, I think the answer might be that both are important if you think about the real lesson of this
Can
movie.
I say this? This is not as much as people will quote to Schwarzenegger's face the thing about the lamentation.
What is best in life? Yeah, Conan. What is best in life?
This movie is not the beginning of the Schwarzenegger movie.
That's Terminator.
That would be Terminator.
Yeah, 2 years later.
There is no quip after spoiler he kills Thulsa Doom.
No.
Which, in a Schwarzenegger movie,
Yeah.
he would cut off the head and he goes, so much for flesh or whatever.
Yeah.
He would say that.
Yeah.
Don't
Not-
get
not-
ahead of
not
yourself.
Milius. Not with Milius, no.
Yeah.
That's not gonna
This
happen.
is them also just saying like, we can use this guy, and
Yeah.
now here is
Don't
typical Brendan.
don't you
comment.
do it, Brendan.
I know, I know, I can
Don't
respect
you
it.
do it.
Specs, what you
Here's
doing
the
here?
thing.
You gonna be
Here's the
picky
thing.
against Specs?
Yeah,
Oof.
he's not Conan. Now this movie is great, and I enjoy it. We've never had Conan. Conan is not Germanic, and this actor has never gotten rid of that accent.
I
Swarthy,
am of the
and
opinion he
he's
is trying to keep that
massive,
accent.
but it is all about black hair, the wide face. It's basically, when I think of Conan, I think of like John Buscema drawings,
Sure.
and I think of what
Frank Frazetta.
and what Carrie Nord did when they relaunched over Dark Horse.
The Busey Carrie Nord stuff is some of the best Conan comics.
Unbelievably
Incredible
great, because
Conan
it
books.
is the books but illustrated, and it's just great.
Stunning.
So I'm accepting this guy as the character, and he has the early Schwarzenegger appeal and he does get comedic beats. They're not.
Yeah, there was
couple
funny stuff.
where you're
I
sitting there
kept
going like-
picking up on like, wow, he does that drunk bit
Actually-
pretty well.
Yeah,
No,
and you're like, all right.
the
and people are seeing
charm
that,
is
and no
there.
doubt. Yeah, there's some charm, but he's got that big, long face. Again, he's not the character.
What-
He's just a guy they saw as being a massive dude. Ferrigno of the same time period
Hercules.
looked more like what they describe Conan as, but at the same time, I don't fault them. It's like, you're going to find a guy that cut.
who's also
the worst thing
that
about this movie
likable.
is they
right.
hire this fat guy to play the main character who never shuts up. It is just nonstop yakety yak from this out of shape fat guy, and I'm like, what is this joke? They very very smartly allow Conan to be not speechless, but it's just they pick their moments. There's a lot of just action, or there are moments that work really well where you see him pondering and you think, okay, that you can see he's an actor, because the thing
I will
you
say
see
this.
wheels turning
Conan
in his
has
brain.
the only Schwarzenegger love scene that has ever worked for me.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
with him and Sandal Bergman, they sell it, and they
do.
They both do a really good job. He's not like, they don't have to cut around him too much.
And she's not a great actress at all, but you can tell in this case they gave her the right part, obviously.
She's
but
great
also
in this,
I think she knew, like, this may be the best thing I ever am involved with. So she's raising her game as much as she can, and she meets them all there. And I'm like, wow, I've seen other things, including that She movie. I've seen other things with Sandal Bergman, and I'm sitting there going like, no, this is it. This is pretty much it.
Because she was
the best work she'll ever do, and good on you.
Once again, when you
and she's the one with the catchphrase too.
He has a catchphrase, and she shows it as a Viking ghost.
Because
it's pretty awesome.
That's that was Milius. That was Milius' whole thing. In fact, I don't know when. I'll do it later. I think I have. I told you guys. I promised you guys I would play selections from the commentary track, which is rather notorious on this movie. But Milius does keep going. The second I saw Sandal, I said, "That's a Valkyrie. She's a Valkyrie." I said, I got to put her in this movie because she's a Valkyrie. And I'll play those clips later where he, on the commentary track, they cut out just every time he calls her.
I don't know if I got it across.
She's a Valkyrie.
John, I got to tell you, I had never thought of Milius as sounding like Kevin from The Office until you started doing
You know what, though? He does. He has a...
You are dead on, buddy.
Yeah, it is what he's doing.
I make my own chili.
Yeah, he really is. He does. Well, he's just...
I'm really good at basketball, guys. So really good.
The thing I like about him in the documentary, too, is he goes, I did what few directors would. I cut myself out of the movie. And he had a cameo in the movie where he was selling lizards on a stick when they're in the when he and the sidekick guy are in the town. And he goes, try these roast lizards. He goes, it was a whole bit about I was like McDonald's, but it wasn't necessary. And I had the guts to say, I had the lack of ego to say, cut me. I also love, but when you talk about this movie is so interestingly cast because the vast majority of these people aren't actors. It's like it is the thing where he talked to me. He goes, we were reading a guy for the sidekick character, and then his agent wanted all this money. I said, oh hell, I'll just get my friend Jerry Lopez to do it.
Right.
I already see this as a Jerry Lopez type.
Even though he's dubbed, he's fine. I mean, about the way his physicality, the way he plays.
But I just love the idea of this guy wants money. I know a guy who will just do it. You know,
They actually. This is what's pretty smart is the money. This probably isn't what the thought was, but still, the money he wanted to put towards making this the best looking sword and sorcery movie ever. But they're getting a pretty cheap cast that works. Arnold's not, he's not getting the
this
big
is
money.
what make this is what sends
Bergman,
him.
Who the hell is she?
She's a dancer,
character actor.
Yeah, Mako was
perfect. Cast his parents as William Smith. You get that. I had William Smith in my first movie. No, it's a joke. I'm just saying you can get him cheap, but he's perfect.
He's great,
and he does that opening
William
monologue
Smith,
so well.
Explaining about Crom.
Yeah.
I was like, this is some of the best shit this guy's ever done.
So good.
I mean,
totally brought
Nadyushka, who is a cult Italian actress, but it's very striking to be the mom, and she gets like a line of dialogue, if even that. But it's all just about again being present, being that character, and you're like, plus the execution.
Her death scene is so good. Number one, because what the two places where they did spend money were very correct, which is James Earl Jones and Max von Sydow. And Max von Sydow, I learned from the documentary.
Right.
I didn't know this. They had Sterling Hayden for that part. Our
interesting.
old friend from Prince Valiant. He was gonna do
That
it.
would have been good.
Then he got
That
sick.
wasn't all right, yeah.
Then he got sick, couldn't do it, and Milius said, God, you know who I'd love is like a Max von Sydow, but he'd never do it until...
And then Dino's like, I know him very well.
Well, and what von Sydow's in the documentary...
You just have to talk to him. It's so nice.
Well, what's great is, though,
You'll be glad he don't have to shave his head.
What's great, though, and I love this about von Sydow, is he's on the documentary, he goes... They called me and I said, my son loves Conan. I will be there in a second. When? And that was it. Because his son was a big fan of the Marvel comics. And he's just like,
that's awesome.
done.
Well, and on top of everything else, I mean, as we've said before in Flash Gordon, von Sydow, if it tickles his funny bone, will do the thing.
Yep.
And will commit 100%.
And he's only in this a little bit, but he adds a lot to that sincerity we're talking about.
And it is, they are, as I said, there's no question if you have this particular director, they're taking it fully seriously. Therefore, are some of the wigs kind of bad? Yeah. Is there too much 80s floofing of the hair? Absolutely. Do Thulsa Doom's two main baddies look like they stepped out of an opening band for Anvil? Yes. Yeah. But at the same time, it's working. So you have von Sydow also delivering some of the emotional thing.
Yep.
Like, you need him as another person to come in. And here's my viewpoint. I don't care. You guys are young. You're after treasure. Have all of these. I don't care about the treasure. He goes, you get to a certain age where it's just about, I want my daughter.
Yeah,
it's like she's more precious to me than any of this stuff. I will give you anything you want. And they're like, great.
That whole moment when he's just like, and she's with Thulsa Doom now, and you just feel that like she's been taken, and because von Sydow can come in, he worked a day on this thing, you know,
and yes. We haven't even gotten. I mean, we've only mentioned him here and there, but James Earl Jones,
and that's the guy.
Cannot be on
he
camera.
brings it.
He cannot be on camera without owning it.
Well, and
He owns it
in the documentary.
That scene where he just looks at Conan's mother.
Yep.
With his eyeballs and transforms his face to one of innocence.
Yep.
And then she takes off that look and lowers the sword. It's incredible. It's probably the best scene in the movie.
Well, and
it is great.
Milius,
it's sort of like he's just like, you're going to die here, and she's like, there's no point even swinging this thing. It just lowers the sword.
Well, no, he used his super Thulsa Doom power.
Well, there's a little bit of hypnotism, but at the same time, it is just an admission of like, you're up against something you can't.
It's that Milius thing of, I'm not gonna expressly state the magic of it. I'm just gonna let it. And you're like, and you're watching it going,
blue
what
eye
are you?
Contacts on James.
Oh yeah. Those are great.
That's a Milius thing he talks about in the documentary as well, where he goes, I put him in lighter brown-haired wig, and I gave him the blue contacts. He goes, I wanted to seem as if this guy was from a race of people that we don't even understand. Like, he has the dark skin, the blue eyes, you just go like, whatever this is, it died out a long time ago.
It's also weirdly, I don't know whose decision it would have been during the writing, but it's almost like they were anticipating internet culture or nerds are like going, there will be people going, pardon me, Thulsa Doom actually fought Kull in Atlantis. And they're like going, well, in this is Thulsa Doom, and we're going to keep stating that people say he's over 1,000 years old. And you're like going, well, so he could be the actual Thulsa Doom fought Kull the Conqueror.
Because I love that moment when Conan goes, you killed my people, you destroyed my village, and he's just, he has to think and be like, that must have been in my younger days when I was doing that kind of shit.
Basically this movie's version of the to you that was the most devastating day of your life. For me, it was Tuesday.
Right, exactly.
That kind of thing where it's like, I don't even know. I don't remember your family. I just whatever.
Yeah. But
it's just cold. But the way he delivers it again,
every single line he has in the movie. Yeah. And he's the guy in the documentary saying what you were just saying. James Earl Jones goes, I knew if we had any sort of wink in this, if we had any sort of indicate, he goes, you had to take this as seriously as Shakespeare. That's the only way this works. And when you get like one of the great stage actors of all time to be in this thing.
I mean, we talk about this in our Patreon, but I mean, it's like Vincent Price. You get one of these frickin' pros to come in and kill it. Mm-hmm. And if they're stage trained at all, they're going to make sense of the gobbledygook in a profound, sincere way.
This is a movie that is so well crafted by Milius that it can even sell. And he is using an amateur actor to sell it. Lines that Valeria has. And they are on the page. I wouldn't write anything that cheesy. It's just, but I do know very true to the kind of writing in the pulps. But when she's like, you know, we can just stay, we will be together forever. And that whole thing, her death scene where she's like going, I want to breathe my last breath into your mouth. Yeah. And you're like going, that is not good. At the same time, we're in that world and it has done so straight ahead and earnest that I'm sitting there just like not weeping but going like, yes.
That's the thing is
the whole
plus Valeria
the whole
forever.
Conversation the conversation in the hut where she goes, we don't have to go after this guy. We don't need to do this. We are extremely wealthy anyway. We can just buy a place. I that's why I say it's the only, to my mind, the only Schwarzenegger love scene that's ever worked, because Schwarzenegger is like into it and into her. Yes. And they have a chemistry. It's
they
stunning.
Do. Also, he is trying. I'm not saying that he ever became the like lazy actor, but here you get the impression he knows. Oh, this is my shot.
Because he had
Hercules in New York. Didn't really make it for me.
Not my shot.
Not my shot. But here he's like going,
long goodbye.
This is
not
a
my
chance. So he is giving it his all. Including he's a badass Conan. Who you just like going, damn. Just pose with that sword a little bit longer because it's awesome.
That scene of him on the beach.
At the same time, he knows that, and it's true in the books too, Conan is this chivalrous barbarian. So he's like, oh, he can soften. He's driven by revenge, but he is like lucky to find good friends. And then he finds a woman that is like a soulmate. And you're like going, he can not be afraid of like, what if I'm seen giggling with this girl? It's like, no, giggle, Conan.
That's
do it.
The kind of stuff.
But I do love that later thing, like when they do the Viking funeral kind of thing, and is like going, why are you crying? And he goes, because he's a Sumerian. He can't cry.
I cried for Conan.
For him.
Yeah.
And you're like going, damn.
That's good
that
stuff.
That is cheesy dialogue, but I'm all about it.
No, it is purely. I was saying this to Ron before we started recording. Yeah, it is so purely pulp. That's the thing about when you say, is it good? It is for this. It is exactly what it needs to be, right? Absolutely. Like, it is pure pulp.
Yeah. It's not really a hot take. My only problem with this movie is I think Milius was too in love with the Miliusness of, the poetry of things. And he just needed like a good one more pass on it for pacing.
Say
interesting.
But there are sections of the movie that I think are extremely well paced. There are sections of the movie where I think that poetry is beautiful, like a David Lean. He shoots some of this shit. And
incredible imagery.
And I just felt like overall there was a pacing on some things.
There's a little bit of that. It is just sort of like, the slow motion gorgeousness of a hugely muscled dude on horseback or whatever. You're like, okay, great. But what I kind of wish is that this exact movie had happened now with effects the way they are, and with also, of course, editing the way it is now.
Yeah, but he would have
Because
insisted on.
this could have used more weirdness.
Yeah.
By the way, Robin, I don't know if you remember, but we saw this at the Palms Theater with our parents.
No,
I did.
I have a note for you.
Okay, were you not there?
I love correcting
You saw
your
it
own
with
history.
Our parents.
Yeah.
I saw it with my friend Amy Smith.
Okay.
Because she was we kept singing Conan back and forth to each other.
Nice.
And I've never forgotten that.
Well, the reason I never forgot singing it with my mother and father is probably that was one of the last films that the family saw together.
Sure.
Because that was close to the divorce.
Yeah.
But also because it was my first R-rated film in the theater. And I remember my mother's hand coming over to cover my eyes every time nudity happened. I saw every
like a good American,
every 15
like
minutes,
a true blue American. That's what you needed to be protected from, obviously.
Right.
But one thing
beheadings.
When the mother's head is chopped off.
It's fine.
Yeah.
As long as she's got a top on, I don't care if the head comes off.
But stuff like the witch scene, which is disturbing, but again, that could have been weirder. The scene with the animated
Ghost?
demon spirit
I love
steal
that.
Conan's soul could have been better. The snake thing, giant snake, and
I love the giant snake though.
No, I love it. And actually, it's pretty well done.
The giant snake still looks pretty good, actually.
And I wanted this to be a weirder world that Conan's in. They call this genre, not of the film, but of the literature, low fantasy.
Yeah.
Because the idea is it's a magical world. It's roughly our world, but there are magical elements people run into instead of high fantasy, where the entire world is magical. Like
this is
funny. Brendan,
key,
you were talking about how this and Excalibur kind of re-jump started sword and sorcery, and there hadn't been much. And I was thinking the one example of this that had been kind of going on for probably 20 or 30 years up to this point had been, for the most part, Ray Harryhausen.
Yep, exactly.
With the Sinbad movies.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we're not that far away from Clash of the Titans being released around this time.
Yeah, his last hurrah, his last big.
That totally feels like
I kept
a reaction
thinking
to
if
these.
Conan had been done by Ray Harryhausen, I think it would have been a lot of weirdness. But
yes,
not
it would have been
of
very cheesy, and it wouldn't have the weight that this has.
Right, yeah.
This has, like, we are making.
Oh, Clash of the Titans was before this.
A legend.
81.
You know.
Clash of the Titans was the year before, apparently.
Oh, okay.
81.
I knew it was around this time.
I only had one action figure from Clash of the Titans, and it was Charon, the boatman, because he looked like he's the spirit of death, and I wanted to have a death action figure.
Yeah,
of course.
Brennan, you don't have to bring up how weird a kid you were, you know.
But
I think it's really...
the low fantasy thing is key there, because
you don't know how many nights I held that action figure over your head going, take him. Take him.
No, but the low fantasy thing you bring up is, I think, key to people who listen to a lot of the podcasts we do know I take a lot of flack for not being a fantasy guy. And I always come back to, I am not a high fantasy guy, particularly. I can enjoy a Lord of the Rings because it's very well done, but you know, those movies are great, and then I kind of move on from them. But low fantasy, I love. I love the sword and sword. I love stuff like, particularly, and I've talked about it before, and we've actually talked about doing a whole season about just 80s fantasy movies, because there was a whole bunch of these that I grew up on, obsessed with these kind of movies, like Excalibur.
Right now, Dragon Slayer.
Dragon Slayer.
I am not a Kroll fan, and I know there are people.
You're wrong about that. Kroll is great.
Kroll.
Okay.
And the Kroll show, but
not
Kroll the film.
By the way, let's make Kroll. I want to remake it with Nick Kroll, so it's Kroll in Kroll.
The Conqueror.
There you go.
A high fantasy film with Bobby Bottle Service. Anyway,
Yes, but Nick Kroll is Bobby Bottle Service as Called the Conqueror.
But Dragon Slayer, I love.
There's a new
one of my favorites, and then if it doesn't get a 4K restoration like tomorrow,
I was just gonna say though, did you know there is a new
burning
4K?
down the WB.
They did recently do a 4K of Dragon Slayer though.
They did?
Yeah, Paramount did a 4K release of that. I have that.
Right.
Yeah, no. So yeah, the low fantasy though, especially because I think a lot of it is like in the 80s, it was like, oh, we can kind of do it cheaper. You know what I mean? It's like we don't have to build entire worlds. Like in the case of this, we can go to Spain and then just do weird stuff. My favorite weird thing in this is James Earl Jones turning snakes into arrows, though. That's awesome. That is just great.
It is super. I had forgotten that was a thing.
It is so.
Like, oh yeah, I remember that.
Just the way he's like.
Used that later. Something used that later.
Oh, something might have. Yeah.
Because it's been in other movies or even maybe comics. But I just I don't think we had seen it before this.
It's a great idea.
He pulls the snake out.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing.
Into that shape and then.
James Earl Jones talks about that in the documentary as well, where he just goes like, I didn't bother to ask why any of this was happening. I just went snake and got it. And they're just like, people ask, why did your head turn into a snake in that one scene? And I went, why? Who cares? Like, he goes,
that's what he does.
He goes, that's it exactly. He just goes, I don't know. I had powers or something. Like, I don't.
Yeah,
doesn't bother me.
This is a guy that by this point was known around the world for being the voice of Darth Vader.
Yeah.
So I think he was just happy to be on screen.
What's cool,
and
that's one of the things I was going to say. People always talk about his voice, but his physicality in this movie, he was such a big dude. When the orgy scene, when everybody's writhing around and he's just sitting there on his throne, giant and like.
And then I do think it's weird that if you're over 1,000 years old, you've got powers probably delivered to you by Set, the god.
Yep.
But you've reached the height, and what it is sitting on the throne, watching people have an orgy, and then like, you know what? I'm snaking out.
Yep. Almost snake, baby.
Tulsa Doom's life is like, you know what? I'm gonna go through my little snaky hidey hole.
My favorite line in the movie that I had forgotten about and really made me laugh this time is when they're asking around the village about Tulsa Doom's cult, and they're talking about the thing, and the guy who knows about it, he goes, well, you know, that started as one of those snake cults, and then or just another snake cult, I think he says.
Right.
Which I love that idea. Well, it started, like one of the all those snake cults, but this one really got out of hand.
Yeah, they had powers. They had, it's like, Jesus, it got big.
But I just love the idea of there's a lot of snake cults,
Cults are not odd.
Yeah, that's one of those.
That is very Robert E. Howard.
Right.
Because everywhere Conan goes, and of course you can map his journey. I checked out the Conan.com, I think Dark Horse and whoever owns the license.
Oh, it's Titan Comics now.
Awesome website that just you can dive into all kinds of stuff, and it has this interactive map, and it's like, go here where Conan went.
Brendan, does that website does it have a more in-depth look at Andy Richter and what he contributed to it?
Yes.
It does. Richter is so key to that show.
There's a hidden Easter egg on the webpage that will take you to the masturbating bear. But anyway,
I'm glad he still has work. That's the thing.
Yeah. And
Pimpbot is your host. So
Pimpbot is your host. But anyway, it's very cool. But it is a Robert E. Howard thing that it's always someone worshiping or wizard who is like, I'm resurrecting this ancient evil, this god. And every town he goes to, it is a thing of like, what's that temple over there? Well, that's for that god. And they're like, and he's like, does it have a jewel inside or whatever? Cool, I'm going to go and get it. But
Barbarian. Bam!
And there's usually a princess or a dancing girl or somebody or a slave girl that needs to be rescued.
Well, I'm still upset that we've never seen. Is it? I've never heard it said. Is it Belit, the pirate lady that he? Belit. What? That we've never seen. That we've never seen a live action version of her is a bummer because what a cool character.
Sonya that we know as Red Sonja that's the comics. That was Marvel.
Yeah.
Because they took a character named Sonya from the Conan stories, who is not really that.
Yeah, that's the
character.
thing. A lot of people say Robert E. Howard created her.
No,
really. Yeah, like you said, it's like there's a sketch of something, but it really is Roy Thomas and is that Barry Windsor Smith?
And probably Frank Thorne, who was the most. I don't know if he was the first artist who did. Probably P. Craig Russell or somebody. But But basically, Red Sonja is comic driven, but Belit, the pirate queen, is another one of his famous female friends.
Well, and that's another thing where I think in the Stone draft or in one of the versions they had.
Did she show up?
She was in it, and then he changed it to this character because he wanted her to be a Valkyrie.
Well, Valeria is also very important.
Yeah,
and I think this is legit.
Okay, it is. It's Roy Thomas and Barry Windsor Smith are the credited
Barry
creators.
Windsor Smith.
Yeah.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah. Great.
But anyway, I mean,
because of that,
all kinds of characters, this could have kept going. We could have been introduced to all these people, and they set it up for a sequel, and we get one, and it's not what we wanted.
Yeah, well, because we'll talk about that next.
Because I don't think Fleischer had the buy-in that Crazy Stone and Crazy Milius had.
We'll talk about it next week on the show, of course. But it's also a thing where
there's not another movie in between.
No, we go right from Barbarian to Destroyer.
We're not doing Red Sonja.
We're not doing Red Sonja because she's not a pulp character, as we talked about. She did come from the comics, and also due to that, she has a separate license. So getting Conan and Red Sonja, because you can't get them in a movie
it was
together.
So annoying that Schwarzenegger shows up in Red Sonja,
but not as Conan.
He's not Conan. You're like,
but he kind of is, right?
What is the point?
Yeah, because of they're making a.
But also, it's not a good movie because I don't think that was good casting.
Well, it's another thing where they tried to do the Schwarzenegger thing of, well, she's got the look for this or whatever.
But we can finally launch Brigitte Nielsen as.
But the problem there is she doesn't have the charisma of a Schwarzenegger. As much as I like her in Beverly Hills Cop 2, where I think she's very well used, just being a figure in it, right? Like, and
there are people that incredible, are made to be like a good Russian reporter in Rocky 4.
Yeah. She's great. And actually, her coming back in Creed 2 as that character, I loved. I love that they brought her back in that.
It was them going like, why not?
Yeah.
We're going to have everybody back at some point.
Dude,
although,
I love those Creed movies.
To me, the great presence in Rocky 4, and I don't like that movie very much, but goddamn, Michael Pataki brings it.
Well, actually, that's what I was going to say about the other actors.
He is terrific.
When you were mentioning the Thulsa Doom's henchmen, and on that note of the Brigitte Nielsen kind of casting, Milius did talk about. He goes, when it came to the henchmen, I just said, Arnold, you know a bunch of big guys, right? And basically, that was it. It was just them going. You've got Sven.
Buddies.
Yeah, Sven Olsen is the one guy, and then the other guy was an NFL linebacker, the guy with the mustache. And he was just like, find some big guys, Arnold, and we'll dress them up in armor. But Milius did say, the guy, the main henchman guy who was the football player, he's like, he goes, that guy didn't know things like half speed. So he goes, I was working on it. I said, you're going to push up a guy against a wall like this. And he goes, and then he shoved me into a wall so hard I saw stars. Right. And I was like, whoa, we're not on the football field, pal. Jesus Christ. He would swing axes and nearly.
A little bit. They are big.
Oh, they're great, though.
Fantasy.
When that guy. They look awesome,
like
man.
Modern people of our era with fluffy they look like they are roadies for Styx. So I was like, the mullets, it's not working.
I enjoyed them. I'm
glad. You love a muscle guy with a huge hammer. You always have.
Sure do.
Wait, what?
I sure do.
Euphemism, Brennan?
I do think you being the source material guy, this was probably where, actually, this is definitely where I first, so this is the starting place for Conan for me, which I think probably does form some of the stuff, right, where I'm reacting to when you go like,
probably, other than
maybe
a little bit of the Marvel comics,
and
Robin would buy the black and white magazines, every now
Savage
and then,
Sword.
like Savage Sword of Conan.
I wasn't like a gigantic fan of that.
He would buy Bizarre.
the Conan the Barbarian. I remember like the one that I actually liked was Marvel Team Up, Spider-Man and Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah.
Robin, have you read Savage Avengers somewhat recently, where they put Conan on an Avengers team?
The tall teen is very fluent with all Avengers spinoffs.
Because Savage Avengers
I'm aware of it.
was so much fun, where you have a time displaced Conan on an Avengers team with Wolverine and Punisher and Doctor Voodoo, and I love
Brother Voodoo, I believe you mean. So.
No,
I'm sorry.
He became Doctor at a certain point.
He is Doctor.
He took over as
he's a Sorcerer Supreme.
He was,
He did for a while.
Yeah, he was Brother Voodoo. Now he's Doctor Voodoo. But I just love Conan's seeing the Punisher shooting a bunch of people and going, lazy. That's a lazy weapon. You're no warrior. Bullshit. Too easy. It's great.
Yeah.
And there's also a time displaced Cool and Goth who is doing magic bullshit, which is why they need Conan to defeat. It's super fun. It's crazy.
All right.
Yeah, I highly recommend Savage
Are you
Avengers.
shilling for Marvel right now?
I'm always shilling for
we
Marvel.
Sponsored by Marvel.
Have you listened to anything I've ever done? If I do one thing on all the podcasts, it's shill for Marvel.
There you go.
For no money.
We got to bring up more DC. Obviously, we need to balance this out.
Do you remember when Ambush Bug
They
was dancing around?
The Conan
There was
license.
a really good issue of Breaking the Bold with
Ambush
Batman, Robin, and Blackhawk. It was really cool.
DC has never had the Conan. The Conan license has bounced around, but it's never made its way to DC.
They didn't need it, man.
No.
They had Claw the Unconquered.
Oh, the beloved
Warlord, Mike Grell's Warlord.
Yeah.
Mike Grell's
I do like. I actually do
I'm
really
thinking
like
Mike
that.
Grell. Brendan, didn't you think of Mike Grell's John Sable when they were in their camouflage paint?
when they did their black paint.
We will also be down several episodes down the line. We will be talking about the Solomon Kane movie as well, so we will get some more Robert E. Howard.
Wow.
Man, people slept on that Solomon Kane.
I like that
movie.
Solomon Kane movie as well. James Purefoy.
I never saw it.
It's pretty good.
This will be a new view.
That'll be
It's
down the
good.
line.
You'll like it.
Let's hear.
Again, the only bad thing about it is lack of budget.
Yeah,
they just didn't have enough money.
But they had
to make it really sting.
But Purefoy, great fucking choice for Solomon Kane. He's so good in it.
Yeah.
Let's.
I'm going to give you a evolved hot take on Conan, which is originally going into this, I was going to. My favorite John Milius movie is Wind and the Lion.
Oh well, great movie.
With a guilty pleasure of his screenplay for The Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean.
Oh sure, yeah.
I love that movie so much. As bad as Victoria Prince.
I was gonna say I really enjoy his Dillinger movie.
Man.
I really liked Milius's Dillinger. It's a crazy movie.
It's very good. And,
love
my
Warren
Oates,
a huge Warren
fan
Oates
club membership has been revoked now, but
oh no.
Because I didn't bring up Dillinger, but I truly
I
like those boys' own adventure movies of his quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I'd forgotten that like I said, there are parts of this movie like when Conan and the thief and Valeria come together to do the robbery and are just hanging out.
Yeah,
it's some of my favorite parts of the movie, just because it's really well done. He's really good. Everything is working really well. They have great chemistry together, the three of them.
And I do like the fact that this is allowing Conan is our main guy, but at the same time, Conan you can't do it alone.
No.
So as you say, there's really good chemistry between these folks, and I like every bit. This is similar to my take on Reacher, the show, which is I like anything where
the best.
Where I like anything where the big guy, whose main selling point is going to be
kick a car. You mean?
Yeah, he can kick a car.
Oh, he kicked the hell out of that car.
Or it's like Conan could literally just grab someone's head and then just crush it. But the thing is, I love the scenes in Conan, just like in Reacher, where he's thinking, where he's putting stuff together, because Schwarzenegger is a smart guy. There's no denying it, and became a decent actor. And he's not anyone's great actor, but he's
a movie star, though, right? He has a persona.
He's definitely a movie star. So, but I like that they didn't go into this movie saying, "Don't worry, man, just glower and swing that sword."
The whole climactic fight against all the henchmen, where he's built the traps and shit, is really cool.
Yeah, he's not the most Kurosawa scene of the entire.
But it's not. Right? Yeah, absolutely. But it shows once again
people on horses falling onto pikes, and
it's not. But that's another example of it's not just his brute force. He's thought it out. There's strategy to it. And of course, once again, Milius talking about like, I put that scene together because I always think like a general. All right, I think in terms of military precision.
Go into your basement with your little figures, John, and just
that's what he's doing. He's got his Civil War recreations or whatever going, and then General Grant came in.
Hey, Brennan. Brennan, you talked to Richard Piercy lately?
No, except for when I was hoping he could get me hooked up in the video game script writing jobs, because that's what he does.
Yeah.
But no,
I keep thinking about his the way he would talk about his Star Trek spec script and stuff.
Yeah. He's also, John, the guy who wrote, I was telling you about him, who wrote the Alamo script that was so long.
Right.
Like
that's right. That feels
page Alamo script, because he wanted someone to do it right.
Yeah. That does sound very Milius.
But yes, that
it's a little bit of that energy is all I'm saying.
Yeah,
it's a similar energy of but all the warfare is important, and it has to make sense.
It's my problem with I appreciate parts of it. It's my problem with the Gettysburg movie, where it's like there's great parts in it, but there's so much tactical,
John, that's all Ted Turner just wanting to be a Civil War reenactment.
That was my problem with it. There are great parts in it. There are a couple great performances, but they all get lost in this just like, this is how it was.
Battlefield Earth, because I'm like, guys, come on. Now,
all right. I think it's time now to hear from Mr. Schwarzenegger and Mr. Milius. So what I'm going to play here is, this is somebody...
You got him online?
Arnold, are you there? Can you hear us? By the way, Arnold loves to bust out that Conan sword. He still has the sword from this movie that he that he famously kept above, right behind him in his desk when he was governor. So when you came in, you had to look at... But also, so many Twitter videos where he's ranting about Trump. By the way, always shocked at how much I agree with Schwarzenegger's politics. It's very strange.
His pleas for, instead of being divided and we have to come together and we have to protect democracy, and I'm sitting there going like, well said, Conan.
but he will occasionally in those videos be like, and my sword.
The Conan sword.
Because there's something about that that's clearly like, now I have the power.
Because he knows the riddle of the sword.
He does, and he knows he knows the riddle of steel. He knows
the riddle of the steel.
He knows what's best in life. But no, okay, so this is somebody cobbled together the best of moments from this commentary that is, once again, off-spoken of. This and the only two commentaries Schwarzenegger's ever done are this and Total Recall. Total Recall also worth a listen because it's similarly weird. Arnold doesn't seem to fully understand what an audio commentary should be, I would say. So you don't have the corresponding images, but I think you saw the movie recently, so that should help. There's also going to be weird interstitial music that separates some of these, so just as a note if you hear that. But let's just hear some choice statements from Schwarzenegger and Milius on their commentary. All right, here we go.
The Wheel of Pain, what
they're grinding grain,
Grinding grain, okay, and the grain was for food and all that stuff, okay. And where were they getting the grain from? Whatever happened to Ben Davidson?
He's around somewhere.
Why didn't you do a close-up on her when she was talking there? Look at the chain.
Yeah.
What do you call it?
Chain mail.
Chain mail, yeah, exactly. What do you call those?
The demons.
The demons. I know, but then how do you keep them in focus?
Well, by getting far enough back from him.
Oh, from me. Does the kid wear lipstick or what is that?
interstitial music.
Yeah, here's the making of the sword. This whole movie has to do with that. Now he's putting it in the snow. That's me when I was young. Here's the hypnotizing that he does. Look at it. She's totally hypnotized. Then she separates her neck. And here's the guy that buys me now. Then I break his arm.
Right.
Just the pounding him with the head and then breaking his head. Now I'm enjoying it already. I forgot about that. That's funny. He was laughing. He didn't laugh long. Oh, this is when I get to know the Wolf Witch, which was another great scene. You know, the way she looks sexy and seductive, and then she seduces me into this, into her little thing, and that's where I met Jerry Lopez.
Your God lives underneath him.
Ah, that's funny. Look at me sleeping there. I mean, that is funny. Oh, now she jumps. I was getting laid a lot in this movie. Huh?
I know.
It was amazing. The lions ate him? Exactly, that's what he said. All of a sudden, he has to listen to the women problems. Even then, in this prehistoric times, women were already in the jury, huh?
Yeah.
But the worst was Grace Jones and Conan, too.
Really?
Oh, she damaged more people than you can think of.
She's gorgeous. Yeah, she's really good here. Terrible waste to throw her over, huh?
I would say.
Another waste. We kill so much beauty in this movie.
Oh, this is where the orgy.
Yeah.
I remember she was like totally sweating and oiled up.
Look how great Sandal looks there.
Oh, I know.
Look at that wonderful Viking face she has.
Yeah.
When I saw Sandal, I fell in love. I mean, Sandal is a Valkyrie.
Where is she now?
I saw her about a year ago. She looked great. But she's a Valkyrie. So that she becomes a Valkyrie. There she is as a Valkyrie. That is a Valkyrie. Valkyrie.
All right, yeah. So yes, Arnold is famous for his commentaries of just describing what's happening in the moment. There's a great one in Puerto Rico. He's like, "This is the part where I sneak along behind and I shoot all the. Oh, there they go. You know."
I liked where he kept asking why he shot the thing the way he did.
Yeah.
The one I always fixate on is
You not seen this movie, Arnold?
No, that is a big. I have heard people who do commentaries say like, yeah, I watched it again last night before the commentary so that I wouldn't. I will say the worst commentary, and I love him, the late great Dick Donner. And I know him well enough I can call him Dick Donner. But all of his Lethal Weapon commentaries are terrible because it's clear he hasn't seen the movies in years. And so he literally is going, what's going on here? What are they? Oh my God. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, okay.
No, the one I love is the one for Superman the movie because it's him and Tom Mankiewicz.
That's a big thing is
and Donner will point out every Speaking of the Sandal Bergman love,
Valkyrie. She's a Valkyrie.
He will point out every time he has done perhaps an inappropriate close-up on Valerie Perrine.
Yeah.
Body parts.
I do think
he'll say like when they're like hijacking the nuclear arms, and they've got the truck pulled over.
Right. Yeah.
And
she's in the sexy red dress.
Sexy red dress. She's been over the back. And Donner on mic will go, "Hey Tom, look, what was that bumper say on the truck?" And Tom goes, "Wide end." He goes, "Yeah." Uh-huh.
I was gonna say, I think it would behoove him to have somebody with him. The problem on Lethal Weapons is he's by himself, so there's just long stretches of silence.
Hey, Tom.
Boobs.
Yeah, boobs. You like that?
Am I right?
You like
Am
that?
I right?
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. All right, well, let's hear some other people's opinions for a segment we do on the show called Highs and Lows.
Highs and lows.
Yeah. Highs and lows. We don't have a theme song yet.
You just gave us one right there.
Yeah.
We don't need
yeah, so of course we'll start with the highs because I think we can all agree this is a pretty good movie. So I think kind of something you said, Brendan, this person would agree. This comes to us from WW Hulk Gurr, I am assuming, but describes titles the review, the most manly movie in film history.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, friends.
It's up there.
Well, friends, I'm 41 years old now, and I have seen this movie over 40 times, maybe 50. I have seen hundreds of movies, action, sci-fi, and fantasy movies, police movies, all the mafia movies. I've seen all the mafia movies. Cyberpunk movies, you name it, I've seen it. I love movies. But Conan the Barbarian is the most manly movie I have ever seen. The soundtrack by Basil Polidoris, My Countrymen, is perhaps the most epic music ever. The photography is glorious. John Milius has done a great job. The cast is great. Plot is great. Everything is great. The intro is magnificent. That which does not kill us makes us stronger. I get the chills every time. And then the narrator speaks. The Anvil of Crom starts playing, and Conan's father tells him the story of steel. This you can trust. Not men, not women. Hell yeah! They brought so much nice and smooth to the Cimmerian. I don't know about that. Nice and smooth the Cimmerian is in this film. Well, he is not so dark-haired or blue eyes, but okay. Arnie is great as Conan. There are no movies like that anymore, kids. Forget it. This golden era is finished.
Sincerely, leader of the Proud Boys.
P.S. Thanks, Daniel De Laurentiis, for this epic film. I'm sure Robert E. Howard would love this film. P.S.S. The remake sucks big time. 10 out of 10 stars.
By the way, it should be PPS. It's not.
I don't know that English was this guy's.
Postscript.
I don't know that English was this guy's first language.
Oh, okay.
Well, how about?
Here to help.
Here's a guy though. Here's a guy with a different opinion. This is from Io Hunkin. I don't know. Ionkin. I don't know. Whatever. Yeah. Who titles their review "By Crom, It Stinks." I saw this when it first came out and was shocked even then by the complete failure of the Hollywood hacks who made the film to either put Conan on screen or even just make a decent movie. Phew! Recently, I tried to watch it again 20-odd years later, and I gagged. It's irredeemable. It's on par with Plan 9, only it's more boring.
What?
Why didn't they read the books? What were they thinking? Conan was created and made for real readers by a seminal pulp writer, one Robert Irvin Howard, who I like didn't just stick with the E, knows the whole thing. No. Robert Irvin Howard, a colleague of Lovecraft and others, he was the man who, in one reviewer's phrase, perfected the supernatural adventure story. Conan was his most popular creation, a taciturn, indomitable, blue-eyed powerhouse, by turns a thug, thief, gang leader, captain, hero, king. Conan spoke little, did much, and was never beaten. He traveled and strove in a reality that Howard created, a thick, palpable, concrete world, an ancient reality, as though Jack London were writing stories not of Alaska, but with the same grit and vigor of ancient medieval France. And better still, to this was added the creatures and world of Lovecraft and Clark Ashton Smith, the supernatural dimensions of the undreamt of, yawning Hellboy-style gulfs of pitch darkness and groping nightmare pitted against this. Alone, lithe, but steel-muscled was the black-browed Conan. Yet in the movie, we're presenting with the brooding, taciturn ubermensch who bears that name, but with some long-haired victim who just happens to have big muscles. Instead of a smart, strong, and infinitely tough young man who never knew a childhood, we get a kind of dumb kid who is growing up. Instead of a grim Sergio Leone-style loner, we get Goofy. Any one of the good Conan stories would have been a wonderful movie, faithfully made, acted out by real actors, invested with decent special effects, and articulated by artists who knew the stories, who knew the character and the world they needed to recreate. But no, instead these people neglected the story, sloshed some of the names around, neglected acting, neglected the Conan character itself, and in general gave us a dramaless, plotting, amateur night fantasy with some fake blood, a fake snake, and James Earl Jones in a wig. It's Conan in name only, and barely that. A real Conan movie would be part Ben-Hur, part Sword of Doom, part Hellboy Dimension of Elder Evil, and crafted with the sincerity that Jackson and Company put into The Lord of the Rings. That Conan movie, however, is still waiting to be made. 1 out of 10 stars.
Can I just say, John, you continue to surprise. You find the longest.
Believe me, these are
I
all
actually went out in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Told the people upstairs to shut the hell up.
Yeah.
And came back down, and you were still.
Yeah.
Actually, both of those reviews are from people who are source material fans.
Isn't that interesting?
The first guy, similar to me,
Yeah.
is accepting, like, this is great Conan movie, and it's not dead on, but it's got the spirit intact, and it's pretty awesome. Second guy is me on a really bad day,
where it's like, but like
that's me if the new Superman movie doesn't have red shorts.
Right.
So,
you in the red shirt, but yeah, the thing, but it is just like, okay, there are changes, but nowhere near what he like. The idea that this is just so far off the mark is that's insane. Like
John, the second guy was Brendan. If you get him talking about Tarantino movies where he's taken liberties with historical events.
No, it's that's okay.
Is it though?
I want him to be stylistically consistent is a problem.
Yeah, I would say he's pretty stylistically consistent, but let's not have that argument again.
Let's stop it, because Brendan will literally shut off the mic in the game.
Also, I have to eat something before we go see Monkey Man.
That's right. We're leaving this to go see Monkey Man.
Hey, have you heard the theme, Brendan?
I think it is. It's a monkey, the man.
No. Yeah.
No.
Right. A little Rolling Stones.
Monkey Man does whatever a monkey can.
Yep.
Does monkeys when he's a monkey? He's a man, also a monkey.
Yep. Yeah.
Look out.
The people that I had barely gotten to know, because Iron Man came out the first year I moved to Portland, and most of my Portland friends, the day Iron Man opened, were subjected to text message that I mass sent out, which was my version of Iron Man if it was a Spider-Man theme.
Oh my God!
Iron Man does whatever an iron can. Keeps a pleat, something like flattens a hem. I just did the whole thing about him ironing, and I got a lot of.
Oh boy!
Hey, could you not include me in this?
Yeah,
kind of
unsubscribe. Unsubscribe. So next week we will continue with our back-to-back Conan discussions with Conan the Destroyer 2 years later, 1984. And here's
it only gets better.
Here's the I haven't seen Destroyer in even longer than Barbarian. I hope it's better than I remember it being. I don't.
I want it.
There's a lot of really good people in it.
I like Richard
Fleischer. We will talk about how the original draft of it was written by Roy Thomas and Jerry Conway, and then most of that got thrown out. Anyway, though, but as always, I will leave us with the tagline for that movie, which is "The darkest side of magic, the strongest side of man." Conan the Destroyer.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll
talk about it. It's definitely I will say, in my memory, I think it's a distinct example of a studio going, that was successful. Oh shit! Now we got to look into this. Now we've got to get involved. We kind of let that one slide, but now that there's something writing on this, we have thoughts. Anyway, that will be next week on the show. But until then, the case file is closed.